Hey, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and I want to talk today for a few minutes about something that Napoleon Hill coined the Devil's Workshop. And by the Devil's Workshop, whether you believe in the devil or not is irrelevant. What he means by the Devil's Workshop is the fact that all of us human beings are surrounded by so many negative influences. There's so much negativity and so much lack and scarcity and fear-based information swirling around us at any time. If we don't protect ourselves from that, and people that achieve what they want in life and are successful and become wealthy always protect themselves against this negative influence that is all around us. But people that are stricken by poverty or failure never do. They live more by default. And what makes the negative influence so devastating to many of us, and I've fallen prey to the negative influence, we all do at some time or another, until we discover that we need to take steps to protect ourselves from the negative things that are all around us. There's no law against it. It's not like you can protect yourself from being robbed or harmed by another individual. There's laws against that help protect us against things like that. But there's nothing in the universe that protects us except ourselves and our willpower from the negative influences that surround all of us all of the time. So Napoleon Hill does offer some suggestions of how to protect yourself, and I'm going to give some information on how I actually do it for me in my life, because it's taken a long time, but I've come up with some strategies to make sure that I am not at the wisp and will of the wind and other people that aren't necessarily and usually don't have my best interests at heart. The only person that will ever have your best interests at heart is you. Even people that love and care about us, it's human nature. We protect ourselves, and we have to be the ones that take care of ourselves and think for ourselves and make decisions and choices for ourselves. That's all we can do, and only we can do that for ourselves. So Napoleon suggests, how to protect yourself against negative influences. To protect yourself against negative influences, whether of your own making or the result of the activities of negative people around you, recognize that you have a willpower and put it into constant use until it builds a wall of immunity against negative influences in your own mind. So basically, he suggests, listen, you need to exert your willpower and pay attention to the influences around you, whether they're from your own thoughts or from other people's thoughts, or what other people say and do that has a negative impact on you, or has the ability to have a negative impact on you. It's up to you to resist and not allow the things around you to permeate your thinking in your mind and have a negative impact on you. Recognize the fact that you and every other human being are, by nature, lazy, indifferent, and susceptible to all suggestions which harmonize with your weaknesses. Now, those are his words, but I hate to admit it, but I tend to agree. I like to think I'm very motivated and success-driven, but there are times when I procrastinate, I watch too much Netflix, I choose to do things because it's easier than actually putting forth the effort to work toward what I want. I think that's human nature, and so I guess it seems a little harsh when you first read it, but it's probably true. Recognize that you are, by nature, susceptible to all of the 6 basic fears, which we're going to talk about over the next few days, because I think it's too important a topic to not discuss in more detail. Set up habits for the purpose of counteracting all of these fears. And again, the 6 major fears are fear of poverty, fear of ill health, fear of criticism, fear of loss of love of someone, fear of old age, and fear of death. Now, I think there's a whole lot more fears that we could add there, but most fears will fall into one of those categories. Recognize that negative influences often work on you through your subconscious mind. Therefore, they are difficult to detect, and keep your mind closed against all people who depress or discourage you in any way. Clean out your medicine chest, throw away all pill bottles, and stop pandering to colds, aches, pains, and imaginary illnesses. Deliberately seek the company of people who influence you to think and act for yourself. Do not expect troubles, as they have a tendency not to disappoint. Without doubt, the most common weakness of all human beings is the habit of leaving their minds open to the negative influence of other people. This weakness is all the more damaging because most people do not recognize that they are cursed by it, and many who acknowledge it neglect or refuse to correct the evil until it becomes an uncontrollable part of their daily habits. So basically he's saying, you know, what you think and what you believe will impact your life and manifest itself in your life. And if you're around negative or depressing or people that are a negative influence, if you don't steel your mind and use your willpower to protect yourself, you will fall prey to that behavior. I mean, there's so many examples of that. Alcoholism tends to run in families because that's the environment that people are around. And if they don't steel themselves against that, they too are more susceptible to chemical abuse or some sort of substance abuse. Families of crimes. I mean, if you grow up in a gang family, you're much more likely to become a gang member than if you grow up in a middle-class suburb and go to, one of the top high schools in the country. You're less likely to join a gang than if you grow up in a family where in the inner city where gangs are the norm. Now, I'm going to read to you. He does a huge self-analysis and has, I think it's 4 pages of questions, and I'm going to read these. And if anybody's interested, message or in the comments below, say, yes, I would like a physical copy of this, and I will find a way to get you the PDF. I actually have typed these questions up, which I should probably be reading off of because my eyes are funky today, and I'm not thinking that. But I did type these up because this is a self-analysis that if you're honest with yourself and you really take the time to answer these questions for you, it'll take about a day. I think it took me about 2 or 3 days to actually go through and honestly answer these questions for me. But because I was willing to do that, and I'm willing to do that repeatedly, I go back and revisit them every once in a while. I know myself better than most people know themselves. And it's in your best interest to know yourself better than anyone else knows you, so that you can be honest with yourself and know what it is that you're susceptible to, so that you can shield yourself against negative influences. And then after I read these self-analysis questions, I will share with you what I think are the 3 most important things that you need to do to make sure that you handle this negative influence thing. And so no matter where you are and what you're doing, you're protected against the possibility of negative influences impacting you and having a negative impact on you. So what does Napoleon Hill want us to ask ourselves about ourselves in Think and Grow Rich? And if you actually have the book, this is on page 276, and you can either follow along and get the questions out of the book, or again, comment below, and I will actually type up, I think I already did it, and share a PDF version of them with you so that you can take your time and actually sit down, maybe over the weekend or next weekend, and answer these questions for yourself. Excuse me. When I talk a lot, I need to drink a lot of fluids. Some of these questions are going to be difficult. I'll be honest. I did a workbook after I had a sudden cardiac arrest along these same lines of a self-analysis by a woman named Lynn Grabhorn. And she wrote a book called Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting. And with that, she had a companion workbook. And I read that, and one of the suggestions she made, I thought I made it up, but she did in the beginning, is to commit to yourself that you'll go through this workbook and do every exercise in it in a row, and you can't move on to the next exercise until you've completed the one you're on. Well, as I was doing that, some of the exercises were easy, and it was easy to be honest with myself and fly through those exercises. But there were a couple of them, one in particular, that I was actually stuck on for 2 months. It was, I think, almost 2 full months before I could get myself to actually do that exercise and move on with the rest of the workbook. I think the whole workbook only took me about 6 months, but come on, 6 months is a long time, but is it worth it? Oh, heck yeah. I haven't been really worried about my heart since. But the point was, that was the exercise. That was the question I needed to answer in my brain, in my subconscious, and my conscious mind the most, and that's why I was resisting it the most. It's not like I didn't look at it every day and try to do that exercise. I actually read it every day for those, 7-8 weeks till I could actually say, okay, I'm ready to do this before I did it. But That's what you'll find with these questions. The ones you have the most resistance to, or your conscious wants to buzz over or skip, are the ones that your subconscious has something going on in that it doesn't necessarily want your conscious mind to know about. So make sure that you answer them. Take the time. You deserve it. You are worth understanding all of these things for you. Nobody else is going to know. Nobody else is going to care. It's not going to impact anyone else's life, but it sure does have the ability to positively impact yours. And aren't we all looking for positive ways to impact our lives? I know I always am. So stop talking, Sharon, get into it. Number 1, do you complain often of feeling bad? And if so, what is the cause? Do you find fault with other people at the slightest provocation? Do you frequently make mistakes in your work? And if so, why? Are you sarcastic and offensive in your conversation? Do you deliberately avoid the association of anyone? And if so, why? Do you suffer frequently with indigestion? If so, what is the cause? Does life seem futile and the future hopeless to you? If so, why? Do you like your occupation? If not, why? Do you often feel self-pity? If so, why? Are you envious of those who excel you? To which do you devote more time? Thinking of success or thinking of failure? Are you gaining or losing self-confidence as you grow older? Do you learn something of value from all mistakes? Are you permitting some relative or acquaintance to worry you? If so, why? Are you sometimes in the clouds and at other times in the depths of despondency? Now, nowadays, someone would say you're bipolar if sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. Sometimes that's just how life is, and we're up and down and up and down. It has nothing to do with a personality disorder. Who has the most inspiring influence upon you? What is the cause? Do you tolerate negative or discouraging influences which you can avoid? Are you careless of your personal appearance? If so, when and why? Have you learned how to drown your troubles by being too busy to be annoyed by them? Ho, 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 was I guilty of that one. Would you call yourself a spineless weakling if you permitted others to do your thinking for you? Do you neglect internal bathing until auto-intoxication makes you ill-tempered and irritable? And I think by internal bathing he means paying attention and cleaning your thoughts. How many preventable disturbances annoy you, and why do you tolerate them? So an example of that might be the kids fighting around you, or the dogs barking in the middle of your Facebook Live video. That never happens to me. And, could I do things to make sure that the dogs didn't bark or bother me or lay by me while I'm doing videos? Of course I could. I could put them in another room. There's all kinds of things. But personally, I don't find it that annoying. It's just life. And I want y'all to know that I'm a real person and I do these things right along with you. There's lots more. Do you resort to liquor, narcotics, or cigarettes to quiet your nerves? If so, why do you not try willpower? Does anyone nag you, and if so, for what reason? Do you have a definite major purpose, and if so, what is it, and what plan have you for achieving it? Do you suffer from any of the 6 basic fears? If so, which ones? And I would challenge that if you don't think that you suffer from any fears, look at the results in your life. And if you aren't 100% satisfied with every single result and every single area of your life, then one of those fears or the devil's workshop negative influences are in some way, shape, or form impacting you. And you want to ferret out and find out what those are so that you can get rid of them so you can be 100% satisfied with your life and your success and the results that you're getting in your life. That was very, very drippy. Have you a method by which you can shield yourself against the negative influence of others? I'll give you a strategy for that at the end if you don't already have one. Do you make deliberate use of autosuggestion to make your mind positive? Again, affirmations are what I use. That's what autosuggestion is to me personally. So I am statements of what you want as if you have it already. Which do you value most, your material possessions or your privilege of controlling your own thoughts? Are you easily influenced by others against your own judgment? Has today added anything of value to your stock of knowledge or state of mind? Do you face squarely the circumstances which make you unhappy or sidestep the responsibility? Do you analyze all mistakes and failures and try to profit by them? Or do you take the attitude that it is not your duty? It's not my fault. Do you have to use alibis and excuses? Can you name 3 of your most damaging weaknesses? What are you doing to correct them? Do you encourage other people to bring their worries to you for sympathy? Do you choose from your daily experiences, lessons, or influences which aid in your personal advancement? Does your presence have a negative influence on other people as a rule? So, when you're around, would people think that you're a negative influence or a positive influence? What habits of other people annoy you the most? Do you form your own opinions or permit yours to be influenced by other people? Have you learned how to create a mental state of mind with which you can shield yourself against all discouraging influences? Does your occupation inspire you with faith and hope? Are you conscious of possessing spiritual forces of sufficient power to enable you to keep your mind free from all forms of fear? Does your religion help you to keep your own mind positive? Do you feel it is your duty to share other people's worries? If so, why? If you believe that birds of a feather flock together, what have you learned about yourself by studying the friends whom you attract? What connection, if any, do you see between the people with whom you associate most closely and any unhappiness you may experience? Could it be possible that some person whom you consider to be a friend is, in reality, your worst enemy because of his or her negative influence on your mind? By what rules do you judge who is helpful and who is damaging to you? Are your intimate associates mentally superior or inferior to you? How much time out of every 24 hours do you devote to your occupation, sleep, play and relaxation, acquiring useful knowledge, or plain waste? I did that exercise at work one day, how much time I actually wasted, and it was mind-boggling, and I changed my behaviors and my habits and how I chose what to do. I did that about 4 years ago. I did that, and it was just, I was cooking ravioli at the time, and I had time on my hands, so I thought, I'm going to estimate over the last 5 years how much time I've spent doing things I don't like to do, I don't want to do, that aren't moving me toward my goals and my desires. And yeah, it was a huge number, very huge number. Who among your acquaintances, A, encourages you most, B, cautions you most, C, discourages you most, D, helps you most in other ways? What is your greatest worry? Why do you tolerate it? When others offer you free, unsolicited advice, do you accept it without question or analyze their motive? What, above all else, do you most desire? Do you intend to acquire it? Are you willing to subordinate all other desires for this one? How much time daily did you devote to acquiring it? Do you change your mind often? If so, why? Do you usually finish everything you begin? Are you easily impressed by other people's businesses or professional titles, college degrees, or wealth? Are you easily influenced by what other people think or say to you or of you? Do you cater to people because of their social or financial status? Whom do you believe to be the greatest person living? In what respect is this person superior to you? How much time have you devoted to studying and answering these questions? And he says, at least one day is necessary for the analysis of the answering of the entire list. So if you don't devote a day to this, you're cheating yourself. Like I said, I think it took me probably 3 days the first time I went through it. Now I can buzz through it in about a day because I go to my previous answers and then I just say, okay, have I changed in this area? Do I feel differently about this? Am I treating this area of my life differently than I have in the past? Okay, so now I promised, what are my 3 strategies for dealing with this? And they're a habit to me, so I guess I didn't write them down. I thought about writing them down. I did. My first suggestion and the first thing that I did, and I did this, decades ago, like probably 32, 35 years ago, go on a news diet. Stop watching the media and the news. And don't just stop watching it on television if God forbid you still do that. And I know most people do. Most people feel like they have to be informed. Unfortunately, the news is not the news anymore. I actually wanted to be a journalist when I was in high school. And then I started to go to journalism school. And then I watched the world around me and how much it had changed. And thank gosh I didn't go into journalism, because I would be devastated by now. Journalists used to be of a high level of integrity, and it was all about reporting what was actually going on. You know, who, what, where, when, why, and how. And it was the facts. It wasn't all the nonsense that they pass for news and media nowadays. It's more fiction than a romance novel in most cases. So go on a news diet. Stop watching the news. I'd say stop watching the news for 7 days. 7 days in a row, no television news, no online news, no news shows, no news programs, no nothing. And note what happens in your life. Note how you feel. I guarantee that if you go on a 7-day news diet, and I call it a news diet because you'll die if you keep listening to the news, I guarantee that you will feel lighter and you will feel better just by this one exercise alone. The second thing that I recommend that you do is pay attention. And Napoleon Hill with these questions actually alludes to it. He's like, you know, who are you hanging around? What people are you surrounded with? What kind of an influence are they? Ask yourself these questions and pay attention to the people that you're around. And you know in your gut, your brain and your mind might be trying to say, oh, no, it's my mom. She's awesome. My mom personally is awesome. But, you know, a lot of people's moms aren't awesome. They're awful. And they are negative and pessimistic and judgmental and rude. And they put you down and make you feel bad about yourself. And anybody that does that, guess what? You need to start reducing the amount of time that you spend on them. And you certainly need to shield yourself and protect yourself and know that what they say is complete and utter nonsense. Because they don't know. They don't know your soul, your being. They don't know what's inside you. They're just judging. And actually, they're just judging based on what they think about themselves. That is a huge statement. And if you don't know that that's a fact and that's how all human beings operate, think about that again. Everyone that I judge and you judge and everyone that judges us, we aren't judging the other person based on what they're doing or themselves. We're judging them based on our reaction to what they're doing. And it's usually something in ourselves that's triggering us to want to judge that or criticize that. And it's usually something that we're afraid of or that we feel we're lacking or not good enough or whatever. Those are the things that we judge in other people. So, number 1, news diet. Number 2, pay attention to who you're hanging around with. And if you're hanging around with all slugs, you're going to be a slug. If you're hanging around with successful people and feeding your brain successful things and thoughts and feelings, you're going to be more successful. If you find yourself surrounded by all negative people, you don't have to necessarily physically remove yourself from that environment, although that would be ideal. But you do need to, I'm going to hang up on my son who's calling, you do need to limit yourself in that. And then you need to do something to counteract that negativity. I recommend reading books like Think and Grow Rich, reading books like The Science of Getting Rich, reading things like Psycho-Cybernetics, anything by Lynn Grabhorn, Hay House, Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. Any positive self-development material, any success material. Thousands and thousands of books are published every week nowadays. There's no shortage of information that will feed your mind what you need to be successful. You just have to go out and look for it. And then the third thing I recommend, and I do, is I actually imagine a wall or a shield or a bubble. I like the bubble one. I imagine myself or my mind and my brain, my body, being surrounded by a bubble. And it's like, I call it a bubble of protection. And what it does is it filters out all the negative influences, all the negativity, all the bullshit that I don't want to be feeding my subconscious and my conscious. And a lot of it is to protect my subconscious because, like Napoleon Hill says, this stuff will automatically be absorbed by our subconscious unless we consciously do something to protect it. So I create this bubble, and it might be a shield or a wall or, something around your mind, whatever visualization or whatever strategy works for you. But I actually imagine that I have this bubble around me. So if I'm in a group of negative people, this bubble protects me. It lets the good things and the positive things and the love and the light and the gratitude and the appreciation and the positive feedback and the positive vibes in, but it stops and does not let the negative influences, negative influences about any area of my life. Somebody encouraging me to eat caramel cake, somebody encouraging me to drink alcohol, because I know that those things aren't good for my personal physical body. Anybody that's being negative or gossiping or rude or disrespectful filters those babies out. And so they don't have the ability to impact me negatively. So those are my 3 strategies. News diet, pay attention to the people you're around, create some kind of a shield of protection for yourself or a bubble that doesn't allow the negative thoughts in. Now, will it take practice to figure that out and make that work for you? And will you have to make that your own? Absolutely. But that's what your life is all about. It's about discovering what works for you and what moves you toward what it is that you want in your life. Because we're all different. We all want different things, and we all will have to take a slightly different path to get what we want. But you at least have to go for it and then do the things that will help you and benefit you. Because when you're being you and being the best version of you that you can be, that is the greatest contribution that you make to the world, because most people aren't being themselves. Most people are too scared and too influenced by other people to ever be their true selves. And being who you really are is so attractive that it makes a huge difference and a huge ripple effect in the world. And our world sure needs more of that now. So go out, be you, have an awesome day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. We are going to talk about the 6 basic fears, because we need to make sure that we're knocking those out of our lives too. Have an awesome day. See you tomorrow. Bye.